You are welcome to the Robotics Archive, and it's a very quick one. I've come to realize that life is in two dimensions. Yeah, two classes of dimensions. We have the natural dimension and the spiritual dimension of life. The natural is seen, the spiritual is not seen. Yes. So I'll just give you a few examples, and I believe this will help. First of all, let's start with sickness. I know if you read the Bible carefully, whenever Jesus Christ wants to deal with a sickness, he starts from the root, which is the spiritual, because the spiritual is the mother of the physical. Let me say that again. It's a key point right there. The spiritual, yes, is the mother of the physical. That means the supernatural gives birth to the natural. That means what we don't see gives birth to what we can see. So the root of sickness is in the spiritual. So what Jesus Christ does is he rebukes the spirit of fever first. If you read the Bible carefully, before any medication can be prescribed to any patient. Yes. So when he meets someone with fever, he rebukes the spirit of fever. Then the person can go ahead and take, medication on that. So every sickness has its spiritual dimension or its spiritual side and also its physical side. And the foundation of of every sickness is the spiritual. The spiritual is what bets the physical. So if you have malaria, you need to deal with the spiritual part of that malaria before you take your drugs. I hope somebody is learning. Now, for cancer, for example, now, there is a spiritual part of cancer, so it has to be dealt with before the physical, can be dealt with. Now, we don't downplay medicine. Medicine only deals with the natural part of every sickness. So if you have any ailment, it's good you go and take your medication. Drugs are good for you. That's for the natural part, because we must bring both the spiritual, remedy and also the physical remedy. Now, the spiritual must come, how will I put it now? You must combine both the spiritual solution and also the physical solution. I don't believe in using only spiritual solution and ignoring physical solution, because at that point you're standing with one leg. I'm not saying there are no miracles. Yes, there are miracles, and that does not need any physical, interference or physical solutions, and you receive your healing, and that's it. Fine. But in life, it's good you create a balance. Okay, you have the spiritual solution working, and you have the physical. It's like someone that wants to go and write an exam. It's good you pray very well, deal with it spiritually, and also study very well, so that when you go to the exam or you come out with an excellent result. I don't know if somebody is learning. Now, I will conclude by saying this. Even the offerings you give, the tithes you give, the things you offer to God, they have both their physical part and the spiritual part. Now, some people say, when I put my offering in church, it's the pastor, the church that takes it. Good. Now, the church takes the physical part of your offering and your tithe. There is no argument on that. The church is legally, spiritually permitted to use your tithes and offerings. Yeah, it's biblical. The church can use your tithes and offerings. Physically speaking, use it to buy equipment, do stuff, run the, day-to-day runnings of the church. Very important. Now, but there's a spiritual part of your offerings and your tithes. And that is what rises to heaven. Now, if your tithe does not meet the spiritual requirement, it will not rise. You're only giving paper. For example, a prostitute, after sleeping with men, you decided to give tithe from the money you got from prostitution. That tithe you gave has only one dimension, only the physical part. That means the spiritual part of that tithe is irrelevant. How will I put it? That tithe is polluted. Let me put it that way. That means there is no, sweet smelling savour rising to heaven. God will not accept it. It doesn't cross the ceiling. Your offerings and tithe from the things that you do that are evil. If you get money from things that are evil and you want to pay offerings and tithes, that whenever you go to church and make those payments, the spiritual part of those offerings and tithes, they will be, in fact, they don't even have a spiritual side. That means there's no rising, there's no sweet smelling savour. God will not receive anything from you. It is only the church you gave it to that will use it. And that's the end. You don't have any eternal reward. But when you are into something that is good, you are doing a work that you are not defrauding people, you are not defiling yourself, you're doing a good job. Whenever you put your tithes and offering, God takes the spiritual side, it ascends to heaven. Then the church on earth can also use the physical part. So it is very, very important. I would like to conclude like this, that we take, we are conscious of both the physical and spiritual sides of every, thing we do in life. And we should also make sure that the moment you're conscious of it, you know the right things to do. You don't put yourself in any form of evil, because you know that the spiritual exists. You know God will accept that which comes from you, that is not physical. And that thing that you're doing will determine whether it will be acceptable where God is or not. Man may accept it. That's how it works. Because if you put your hand in any form of evil and you go to church and drop your tithes and offering, a human being will accept it. The church will accept it. It is only God that sees beyond the physical. He knows where that money is coming from, but God will reject it. So that's why the moment you realize there is a spiritual part of your offerings and tithe, there is something you have to do, which is walking in righteousness, so that you can start having what we call eternal reward. Because your reward will only end on earth when you focus on the physical alone. But when you start having the supernatural and the spiritual dimension of life as something that you should consider, then you start having what we call eternal rewards. And eternal rewards are beyond physical money. Eternal rewards are things that money cannot buy. And you should go for those things. So thank you so much as we begin to look at the physical and the natural sides of life, even when it comes to sicknesses and diseases, because I've talked about sicknesses and diseases, I've talked about tithes and offerings. Let's start looking at the spiritual sides of life, because the foundation of everything that we see in life is the spiritual part. The spiritual part gives birth to the physical part. So thank you so much for being part of today's episode in the Robotics Archive. And see you on the next.